Hi, everybody. I am Laura Bowles. I'm the owner of The New Normal. And again, I'm here because we are experiencing something that we've never experienced before. Schools have been closed due to the pandemic, and it's been over 2 weeks for most of us since our kids have been in school. We're not really sure when that's going to end. And I've heard a lot of different experiences. Like for some people, they're feeling like it's really been great to slow down and clear their schedules and not have all of the obligations that they normally have, and that the time with their family has just been a really positive experience. I know for a lot of people, they're juggling a lot of different agendas, having to work from home and have their kids at home. So having to be, a parent at the same time as an employee, and then feeling the pressure of maybe I should teach my kids something during this time because they're not in school. So I know, it has been experienced in a lot of different ways. I know one thing for me that I've noticed is that I am really feeling sensitive to my kids' emotions. And as you know, with young kids especially, all people, emotions are a roller coaster, and it can be really difficult when you are riding the roller coaster along with other people in your family, especially your kids. So that's been difficult. So, I think whether you are having that, a more positive experience of it, or whether you're really feeling the stress of multiple agendas and having to juggle that in a different way, it's different for all of us. And so conflict is definitely more likely to come up in that. So what we're going to talk about today is how conflict can be a catalyst for our children to express their emotions and for them to feel safe and loved as they do that, and for us to feel connected to our children when we're in conflict with them. So I want to start with a quick story about something that happened a few days ago in our house. This might sound familiar to you if you have kids. So my 5-year-old son, I was asking him what he wanted for lunch, and he thought about it for a second, and I think I gave him a couple of choices of, what we normally have. And he said, I know what I want. I want a sandwich with ketchup on the top, mustard on the bottom, and jelly in the middle. And my knee-jerk reaction was just to say, no, that's disgusting. Like, I am not getting that for you. And he lost it. He crumpled to the floor, started crying, was screaming at me, was just so upset that I had said no. And of course, my first reaction was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said no. That maybe it wouldn't have been that unreasonable in the first place. But it did sound disgusting, and I just thought that's not a good choice. So, but when that happened, he started, it was so kind of unexpected. It took me aback because, before that he had kind of been playing on his own and seemed okay. But as soon as that kind of outsized emotion came out and I kind of got over the surprise about it, I felt so relieved. And I'll tell you a little bit more about why in a minute. But so once he started crying and was like really upset on the floor, I just decided, okay, I'm going to be here for this. So I sat down on the couch kind of near him. He was kind of facing the other direction, but he was still so upset. At one point, he crawled into my lap and was hugging me, still crying. And then he was so angry with me, he also got down on the floor, faced away from me, and said, I'm never hugging you again. So it was just all over the place, and I knew that, he was really in that wave of emotion. So eventually he calmed down, and, I told him I knew he was disappointed, And he ended up talking to me, and we were able to kind of move forward and decide what he wanted for lunch and agree on that. So I tell you all of that, first of all, to say things are crazy around here sometimes. And I think that if I recorded all of the stories of things that go on like that, it would probably not be that surprising to you if you have young kids. But the good news is that when you notice that your children are starting to, maybe they're getting whiny, maybe they're making requests that seem outrageous, and you say no, and you see this huge explosion of emotion, that is when you can feel relieved. I give you permission. Feel relieved. And this is why. Right now, adults are feeling really tense. Our regular schedule is gone. There's a lot of conversation between adults, on the phone, FaceTime, about what we're dealing with. And our kids are hearing all of that. And they're absorbing, even if we're not telling them directly what's going on, they know that the schedule has changed and they know that something is going on. But when kids are feeling some of these emotions, they don't have the self-awareness to say, I'm feeling really unsettled. I need to cry, or I'm going to go for a run to, feel better. Kids don't have that kind of self-awareness. And let's be honest, a lot of times we don't have it as adults either. But when they have these huge, outbursts that we just think like, whoa, where did that come from? That is their way of getting the emotion out and getting themselves back to normal. So that's number one. You can feel relieved and you can feel good about it. I know that it doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it's a sign that progress is being made and you're going to be able to move forward. So a lot of people ask, what do I do when these big outbursts of emotion happen? You told me I can feel relieved, but I need to know, how do I actually address it? The good news here is you can really do very little. You don't have to change your answer. You don't have to punish your child for having a big emotion. And you don't have to stop the emotion from happening. Most of us probably know that it's kind of futile to try to stop it. Once they're on that wave of emotion, it has to be fully expressed. Like they have to ride the whole wave for them to get back to a calm state. So you don't have to do those things. But what you really do need to do to establish that feeling of safety and connection is to acknowledge. So that doesn't mean that you are giving in or not holding your boundaries, not holding your ground as a parent. But let me tell you what it actually does look like. So acknowledging can be as simple as your body language, giving your child your attention. Maybe it's stopping what you were doing if you were in the middle of something when it happens, and just, showing them you're there, you're ready to handle it. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase bring the calm, but in those moments, that's where you as a parent can be as calm as you possibly can be, even when it seems it doesn't match the experience of what's going on for the child. Just by staying close, making sure they stay safe, and, even just acknowledging with your body language, that's a huge plus. If you do feel like you want to say something, you can say things like, I see that you really wanted that sandwich. You can say, I told you no, and you really didn't like that. Just really simple statements that are observing what's going on. And that shows, your child that you get it. Like, you understand why they're upset. And, doesn't mean that you're going to change your answer. You don't have to say that in the moment, but that you're just understanding and seeing what's happening. And what that allows is for you to be connected to them, for them to see that they're important to you and you value them, even when they're upset, especially when they're upset. For a lot of people, that can be really uncomfortable in the moment, just to be, just to be doing nothing, essentially. For a lot of people, they feel like that's not enough. Like, I'm not doing enough. I should be stopping this from happening. And that's the key, is to really get into a mindset change here and believe that this is the right thing to be happening and even welcome it, be glad that it's happening. And your child will sense that from you, that it's all good. Like, you're not trying to stop it. Another thing that can, kind of get in the way sometimes is that people feel like it's a reflection on them as a parent, that, they don't want to have a child that is having this outburst and everybody is judging them for it. So that's kind of the good news about right now, is that we aren't in public that often right now because we are at home with our kids. So we don't have to worry about the cashier who is giving us a look as our child is in the grocery cart melting down. So it's a good time to practice that acknowledgement process and practice letting your child, go through the whole range of emotion. Because, for a lot of us, we're at home and we're in our private space. And so there's really, nobody around to worry about that. So a lot of people want to know, what do I do to teach my child the coping skills that they need for life? We want our kids to be able to deal with disappointment without having, a big tantrum once they're adults. The first thing I'll tell you is, brain development will take care of a lot of that. They're going to grow up and, they're safe and loved. They're going to be able to develop those coping skills. But you can teach them directly. In, times where they're not upset and you're just playing with them, you can use something that you're playing with. Like if you're playing with Legos or action figures, you can make up a story about how the character is upset and how they deal with it. So you can do that in a non-confrontational and a fun way. There are also a lot of great tools out there to teach coping skills. One that's been really helpful for us is the Best Day Yet podcast. It is created by a mom and her 2 children, and they, they're pretty short, and they just go on adventures where they learn about different animals, and she teaches mindfulness practices and positive affirmations through those stories. And the benefit of that is the more that kids practice those skills in times, that are just fun and they're not upset, the easier it will be for their brains to access those skills in times when they are experiencing stress or they are upset. So those are going to be life skills that they can access, throughout their life. So the last way that I want to talk about that you can teach coping skills is by example. I know that is not always a welcome thought. I'm right there with you. I am not always the calm, patient person that I would like to be. And especially right now, when there's a lot of extra stress going on, it may not be the time to focus on teaching coping skills by example. It is a good time to focus on how you're feeling and if you need a break and how you can take those breaks and get what you need. I'll talk more about that next week, actually. But what I can encourage you to do is in those moments when you feel like you're handling something really well, that's when it's time to spell it out for your kids and make sure that they notice that you are doing something healthy by thinking through things and handling a disappointment. So for example, we're all experiencing a lot of cancellations right now. So maybe you had dinner with a friend planned that now is canceled and you feel really disappointed about it. You can say, I was really looking forward to going to dinner tonight, but it's canceled and now I'm disappointed. But I'm going to try to think about the positive. So I'm excited that I get to have dinner with you tonight. And just by saying those things out loud that maybe we would normally think in our heads, our kids listen to that. They copy things, as you know, that we don't always want them to copy. So give them something, good that they can copy. So I know that's a lot of information. And it was a lot for me to kind of get through all of that, but I felt like I couldn't say part of it without saying all of it. So the bottom line for today is when the big emotions come, because they're gonna come, because we are all dealing with, the stress of parenting through this pandemic situation, you can feel relieved and you really don't have to do that much. You can kind of sit back and let it happen and acknowledge. And then that there are ways that you can teach coping skills, and those ways have to happen when your kids are not upset and when you are not feeling stressed. So find the good times, find the silver linings to highlight for them. So if you're wondering, how do I do all of this when I'm feeling triggered or anxious? That is what I'm going to talk about next week. So I hope that you will join me again next week. And let me be the one to tell you that no matter how you felt about how today went, tomorrow is a new day and you're doing an amazing job and your kids are lucky to have you.